As we both know, there's a lot of moving parts to any budget situation. A lot of ideas and initiatives have to mesh together with that line item. So there are a lot of proposals and initiatives that have been discussed, but one in particular that has me just a little bit concerned is the funding request for intellectual disabilities and the Community Waiver Program. As I'm sure you know, we've got the same data. As of December 31st, 2018, we had approximately a little over 13,000 individuals on the waiting list for services and being categorized as emergency, critical, and planning needs. It impacts probably every legislator in this room having families on that waiting list needing critical services. So I know a lot of us support it for that reason. It touches home with us. So during the hearing with the Secretary of DHS and her staff, Representative Dunbar pointed out that DHS has requested $55 million state fund supplemental for the Community Waiver Program because the cost of care for the 3 community waivers is 3.7% higher than we estimated last February. So including the supplemental, state funding is more than $116 million, or 7.6 more than fiscal year 2017-18. So the proposed budget for this year, though, only is asking for $29 million, or a 1.8% increase, and that includes the $34 million for the 53rd cycle payment for fiscal year 2019-20. So this is where my concern starts to come in. My concern is the amount being requested in the budget, will it be enough to cover the cost for providing these much-needed services for the Community Waiver Program?
Okay, I was making sure you're done. So, yeah, I think we've seen costs grow there, but we're also looking to see some savings as part of instituting the new community living waiver and transitioning those individuals. In the past, we really had 2 waivers where there was a much smaller capped waiver at about $35,000, and then an uncapped waiver, which, as you can imagine, had extremely high costs. Several years ago, we instituted the community living waiver and really hoping to give people that gap in between that smaller capped waiver and the one that is uncapped, and being able to provide them services. There is an initiative, as you know, to address some of the waiting list, and I know that the Deputy Secretary of Office of Developmental Programs is really trying to reevaluate that waiting list and look at many different options that makes those categories move and shift people into them, and being able to serve the graduates on a much sooner basis, I think, is very helpful to some of those older parents as well. And our estimate right now is that it is enough to cover it, but I think, as usual, we will update that estimate in spring.
So I guess that's where my concern is. So we do have enough money in the budget to, cover the cost of existing waiver programs. And then the second question is, will we have enough money to do the expansion initiative targeting, I think it's about 865 individuals? Because I know the families are counting on that expansion.
Yes, the proposal is that that would include expansion of that waiting list initiative. And, it's difficult in DHS specifically because the budget is driven by consumers almost entirely. And we have several block grants that are capped, but so many of the cost drivers are driven by consumers, and that needs to be updated on a regular basis. And at the time we put the budget together, that was our best projection.
So at this point, you feel confident, though?
Yes.
So let's go the other way. Let's say we reevaluate the numbers, and it's looking a lot like this year, like we need to do a supplemental. So at that time, if we find we don't have sufficient funding on hand, do we slow down the rolling out of services to individuals, or do we have to come back and ask for another supplemental?
I think we need to look at the overall changes in the budget as we update across the board and see if we need to shift priorities to make sure the funding is available.
I point this out, one, because I want us to be very careful about our calculations. If we miscalculate, we're putting individuals and their families at risk or in some pretty difficult situations. I feel that we all of us at the table on this have a responsibility to adequately fund the services that we make a commitment to provide. And I know we do the best of our ability to do that. I just want to make sure we're there. I also feel like we have a responsibility to the citizens of the Commonwealth because we're reaching into their pockets to pay for these services. And I know they want to be more involved and they want to make sure we're doing the best with their dollars that we can. So I just ask as we move through this budget process that together we pay attention to these details. If you can update us sooner rather than later, if you see changes or you see that we don't have enough, I would appreciate it. And just one thing I want to say is I just don't want us unintentionally underfunding a program.
Sure.
Thank you for your time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.